Live from the CMAC studios in downtown Fresno, Election Night 2018, with coverage of national, state, and local elections in the Central Valley. And now your host, Sevag Tateosian and Alina Woodhams.
Welcome to the beautiful downtown Fresno studios of the Community Media Access Collaborative Fresno Clovis. We're here providing you with live coverage
from
this
the
very
CMAC
interesting
studios in
election
downtown
night.
Fresno.
Our experts
Election
today
night
are two
2018,
gentlemen who are
with
known
coverage
very
of
well
national,
in this area.
state,
We'll start
and
with
local elections
Tom
in the
Boyajian,
Central
former
Valley.
Fresno City Council member.
Hi, thanks, Sevag, for inviting me. I was a city council member for 8 years, and I was really lucky to have done a lot of really great things for this community. And it's really interesting in these council races that we have a lot of diversity and a lot of different people who are pretty qualified. I think, and as I've read some of these bios, I think we're going to have some good races, and it's really good that people are getting involved in city politics, because this is something that's really needed in Fresno.
Tom, you were a city council member. How are the candidates feeling tonight?
Well, my thing was, I said I worked really hard, because when I woke up the next morning and I watched Channel 30, I don't want to plug Channel 30. I always want to make sure that I was glad that I won. In the mayor's race, not so much, but it's if you've done the work, all you can do is do the work. And if you've done the work, you have to be satisfied with that. And they're probably at their, they're probably at home or at their campaign headquarters, and they're with staffers and people. But if you've done the work, this is a day to really just relax, sort of. I don't think any of are walking today at all, but.
Bill McEwen, our other expert tonight, GV Wire, you all have covered a lot of these races. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your publication.
Well, Sevag, I worked 37 years at the Fresno Bee, so yes, I've covered a lot of elections, a lot of late nights for primaries and general elections, and last August I went to work for GV Wire, and we're a digital news publication. We do a lot of video and a lot of the same kind of stories that you would see in your newspaper. So we're kind of a hybrid. We're constantly improving, adding staff, and I have to tell you, today we had very heavy web traffic, and I think a lot of people, you can see every story that people are reading, and they were really going to our election 2018 portal, and I guess you would say they were doing last-minute cramming. And as you know, we have a lot of news and video about local races, and even 2-minute videos in which candidates introduce themselves and say a little bit about themselves. And I think that voters, yes, the hardcore voter wants to know the issue. The hardcore voter is going to, align with his or her party. But there's a large group of people out there. They just want to see what a candidate looks like, hear them talk, and name the issues that are most important to them.
So you had a lot of traffic today. You must be very pleased at the work that's being done at GV Wire.
Yeah, well, I spent most of the day thinking about how we're going to improve it for November 6th.
Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
So it's been an interesting election cycle, this election time. Are you ever surprised at just the candidates or just the election in general?
You want me to take that
Sure.
one first? So a lot of politics and the races, they fall according to the way they've been handicapped, but there are always surprises, and I think that's what makes it so interesting. And Tom's right. Alan Autry, he had the saying, the hay's in the barn. He didn't believe in the last minute campaigning, but as we're seeing today, a lot of candidates are putting a lot of effort into trying to get the vote out, even running last minute ads. I noticed that President Trump, I almost called him President Tweet. You caught up on that. President Trump, sent out a tweet telling everybody to vote for Devin Nunes. I thought that was interesting. That the president, I don't know if he just wanted to lend support or if he felt maybe that Representative Nunes needed support.
So throughout the night, we're going to be talking about different races, and we're going to be showing some graphics. But I want to pause and just say thank you not only to the audience members watching this broadcast live, but the team. I mean, I wish that people could see the team here now making this beautiful publication work. So Tom, tell us, are you ever surprised?
You know, this has been a really strange season for politics. I've never thought of a Democrat trying to help a Republican so that they would be going against a Republican in the general election, and that's what Newsom has done. And Villegas the same thing. He's sort of done the same thing. I mean, they're supporting Republicans so they can get on the slate with them, which I've never seen before. And some of the interesting races, I mean, the Attorney General race where you've got an incumbent versus an individual who had a state office. That's going to be an interesting race too. But you know, I look at a lot of the races, and you know, especially Dianne Feinstein's race, and 2 is going to be an interesting. Who gets 2 is going to be very interesting. You've got some real activists, Democratic activists, and a couple of Republican activists that might surprise and get number 2. So it's been very surprising. It's been an interesting.
Yeah, and let's see if there's surprises. Last year.
Well, I have one race I think will be something of a surprise for people. That's for insurance commissioner.
Oh, share with me.
We're going to see a candidate with the no party preference label. Could very well end up on top, and that would be Steve Poizner.
Interesting.
But he was at one time, had that job, and what was he, a Republican then? I think he's changed his
something like
I think
that.
I think he's changed his party, but he was the commissioner, I think, about 8 years ago, and then he left.
And he ran for governor.
Is that what he did? Okay.
So the other thing we're going to have today is a couple of city council races, but you know, GV Wire in partnership with CMAC and Flip partnered together in doing some forums with the candidates. Well, I mean, that's a great informational session for our audience members. Did that go the way you planned, Bill?
Well, you know, it doesn't always go as well as you plan. There's always room for improvement, but it seems like that a lot of major media today, they don't do as many forums as they used to. It seems like public television isn't as active in that arena, and so you know, I thought our collaboration with CMAC made a lot of sense. And if you looked at the finished product, they were professional, and I always, you know, go overboard to try and be fair to everyone.
So speaking of one of those forums, let's talk about the District 3 race. We don't have numbers in yet, but this is an interesting one.
This is very interesting. The diversity is incredible. You've got this Miguel Arias who's had 3 really good jobs. Worked for Blong-Jong. He's a member of the State Center Community College District, and he works for, you know, Fresno Unified. Those are all pretty good positions, and I don't know how much work he's done. I see a lot of his signs and stuff. And then you have Tate Hill, who's endorsed by the mayor, and he was endorsed by Baines, and he has been president of the Black Chamber of Commerce. He's run before. And then you've got this individual, Darren Miller, who is seeking his doctorate degree from in education. But Bill, why don't you go on and give us some more?
And we're updating the numbers as we speak, because some numbers are in.
Already?
But yeah, some of them are in. But Bill, talk about this race.
So we call the first ones the 801s. So they're the first ones that are counted, and they are from the vote by mail ballots that were returned to the county clerk before today. And so I see our numbers disappeared, but when I look at this race, I think that Miguel, at 1, there will be a runoff. That's my prediction.
I think so.
And Miguel Arias will be in it. And then I think it's a matter of who steps up for that number 2 spot. And Tom mentioned Tate Hill, endorsed by the mayor. And Darren Miller has a lot of support in the West Fresno community. You know, his family is well known there. Craig Sharton, of course, has name ID. He's a former Fresno City Councilman, longtime downtown advocate. And Larry Burris, I think he's the king of the signs. He spent all his money on the signs. So you see his signs throughout that district. Kimberly Tapscott Munson's very well qualified for the position. I just don't know if she has enough backing or had a strong enough campaign financial contributions to make it through. And Sean Sanchez, I see him more as a one-issue candidate. He's very upset with the way City Hall is enforcing its new anti-slumlord ordinances. And in fact, we had a story in which Sean said, "I am not a slumlord," but he definitely has issue with the way the city's carrying out that initiative.
So I live in this district. I live in District 3, and I will tell you, several of the candidates visited my home and left stuff for me. So this one is interesting because you have so many candidates for it.
Sure.
But and so many qualified candidates. Even Miss Munson. I mean, she was a plaintiff in a case against a plant in the district where she sued him. And everybody has a really good background.
But we're seeing 7 candidates because Oliver Baines is terming out. It's an open seat. And people feel like they have a better shot, when you're not running against an incumbent. It's hard to beat an incumbent in the city of Fresno.
Well, we're going to see one a little later on, and an incumbent is challenged by 3 people. We'll get to that. But here's the other one. So far, 4.3% of precincts have been reporting. Here are the numbers that this has come in. What are your thoughts on that? Bill, let's start with you.
So, I don't have anything beyond the conventional wisdom about this district, which is for Brian Whelan to end up as a city council member, he has to get 50% plus 1 vote tonight, because Democratic registration edge is pretty significant there. You can see right now 2 Democrats totaling 59%. If you want to look, Viva Islas is a longtime community organizer. She's more liberal than Nelson Esparza. Nelson Esparza is backed by kind of what I call the Perea political machine. And, he's like the Pereas, a Blue Dog Democrat, more conservative. And Brian's had to take some more liberal positions in this race because he recognizes, I think, the makeup of the district and also the needs of the district.
Brian has a lot of money. He's got lots of money. I mean, he could run for mayor probably. Nelson Esparza is on the county board. He beat an incumbent who had been on it for 30 or 40 years. He's a hard-working kid. Viva is another really good candidate. Just as Bill said, she's a community activist, and both are Democrats. And you can see that they're sort of splitting the vote. I think you're going to see a runoff, and you see a lot of Whelan signs out there. He's done a good job. I don't know who's worked the most, but I've seen a lot of Nelson Esparza.
Again, I want to remind our audience.
When you talk about having a lot of money for your campaign, you traditionally think of campaign, advertising, television, radio, your signs and that. But when you have a lot of money, you also can employ precinct walkers.
It helps.
So you have your volunteer walkers, but when you can use professionals or people very experienced and pay for them, that's an advantage. And Brian's been able to do that in this race.
And he's got the support of the police and the firefighters, and that always helps. When people see on his sign support from the police and the firefighters, that gives them a. But I think it's going to be a good race because I think these 3 are all qualified.
So 4.3%.
We should emphasize that.
Yeah. Could this? Well, let's get to the next race. Let's talk a little bit about District 5, Council District 5. That's the Kings Canyon Avenue area, not so much downtown, but east of us. So this one is interesting because the incumbent is Luis Chavez, but he had 3 people run against him. Bill, start off on this one.
It surprises me a little bit. I mean, I think Luis has done a very good job. He's, again, a Blue Dog Democrat, really focused on business issues. And much like Tom Boyajian did, he's spends a lot of his council time, working the district. And he's been working very closely with the businesses there, trying to help them expand, move into better places, and thus, increase hiring in his district. And Jose Barraza's longtime economic development guy, worked a long time for the county. He's run before.
So
Paula Yang, though, you can see by that total 38%, that surprises me. So
and it's 13%.
That's telling me that she is really targeting that district, and you know, she's the only woman in the race.
She's got a high profile, though. She has a TV show, and she's an anchor, you know, in among TV stations. So, and she's got a degree in business. So, and she, you know, she's a very attractive woman. So she's doing pretty well. But this district is really important because this is where Fresno is going to really grow. You're going to be seeing a very diverse district with, you know, so the person that runs it, I mean, Mr. Chavez has worked for Sal Quintero, so he knows a lot about the district. But he's also run in different, he's run in races other than the city council. He ran for, I think he ran for the assembly. Mr. Barraza has run before, and he's a conscience of the district too. But and this district is going to be a paramount district to be able to run.
So this one, 13.8% reporting, and these are our numbers so far.
And I want to build on something that Tom said, and because the way the new Fresno general plan is, and also the restrictions on access to water for new development, Southeast Fresno is basically the prime area for Fresno to grow. Southeast Fresno and West Fresno.
So let's move on to the County Board of Supervisor race next. We'll definitely keep our eye on this race because it could change with 13.8. But this one, 20% reporting. Look at the numbers so far. Brian Pacheco, County Board of Supervisor of District 1. Jose Ornelas, 19%. Does this surprise you, Bill?
No. No, not at all. And we'll have a clear-cut winner tonight in this one.
So how good should Brian Pacheco be feeling? Is it too early to be celebrating at the 81%? It's a lot of number.
I think I'd be celebrating. He has over $283,000 in his you got to give Mr. Ornelas props. He's a city councilman in San Joaquin, and he believes that the rural cities should have more power than they are. So he's making his stand. But Mr. Pacheco's doing very well. He's done really well. I think he touts the fact that he's able to collaborate with the city, which is really good. Because that's an area that needs to have a collaboration with the city, because that's the area that's west of the highway.
West Fresno, it's west of 99.
Yeah.
That's the area.
And you think about Brian Pacheco, he came through a tough competitive race to win the first time. He's a conservative Democrat, one of the rare Democrats on the Fresno County Board of Supervisors, but he's able to work with everybody.
So if these numbers stand, if you were the one not getting the 81%, if you were at 19%, do you feel down on yourself at the end of the night?
No
Tom?
way. When you're making a stand and you're running and you believe in the things that you say, I don't care if you win or lose, you're a winner because you try. I mean, you're going, like Bill said, it's really difficult to beat an incumbent. And when you go after an incumbent because you believe that, whatever your philosophy is, the rural areas are not getting the representation they deserve. I mean, he's doing what he has to do, and I would feel proud to do as well as he's done, to be truthful.
And the other thing, when you have someone run, I mean, they're really performing a public service. When incumbents get free rides election after election, that's not a healthy situation.
No, it's not.
Because you're not really shining a bright light on their performance and the operation. For example, if it's an office, a single office. And so, when I lecture at the San Joaquin Political Academy, I tell everyone, I thank them just for signing up for the academy to even think about running, because it's tough. It's not an easy thing to do, and you put a burden on yourself and your family.
And he's getting his voice out, and maybe it's going to help. It might help the town of San Joaquin to see that he's do what he's doing and stuff. So I mean, I think it's great. I mean, I think that's what it's all about.
And I think the interesting thing about this one is that Mr. Ornelas said he's not running against Brian Pacheco. Let's move on. Another one that was interesting to me was the county clerk race. Typically, I don't know if we see a county clerk get challenged, but here we have Mr. Rivera who challenged Ms. Orth, and with 20% reporting, again, it's 20%, 80% of the vote is with Ms. Orth. Bill, any thoughts on this one?
Very hard to run against Brandy Orth. She's extremely hardworking. She networks. And, you know, just take a look at the county clerk website today under her. I mean, as technology has allowed things to be quicker and provide people with more access and information, she's kept up to date with it. I think she's done a good job. Yeah,
she's been appointed to that position, but she's also won it. She's been in the county 25 years. This is another individual, Adrian, I'm sorry, who has a really strong community activist support. It's amazing. I was looking on his website, and he's, you know, getting the signs out and doing all those good things. And he has some issues about how he wants to change things because he feels that everybody doesn't have. Some people have barriers to voting and stuff. So he's put his position out there. But I'm with Bill. I think it's going to be very difficult to beat Brandy Orth, but he's participated. He's got a lot of volunteers that are out there putting signs up for him too. So
definitely, if someone were to lose against an incumbent, that shouldn't be the end of their career, correct?
Not necessarily, but I want to ask Tom a question. People that challenged you, ran against you, did any of them have good ideas? And when the election was over, did you jot that down and say, hey, that was a good idea, maybe I ought to adopt that or push it forward at the city council?
Yes, I think what Bill said about me was a lot of the things that I did in my district. It wasn't so much I did them. I got ideas from people in my district. And when you're a city councilman, there are a lot of people there they're going to help you. And my district is a very activist district. But when I ran the first time, Bill, I got into the race in March. So my big concern was walking it. and I had this newspaper that was supporting the other guy. So I had to work doubly hard. I think it was the Fresno Bee. So I had to work really hard.
But I didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah, right.
And you two have known each other for a very long time.
For a long time.
And we'll get to that later on. But we've got some more numbers here. 20% of the precincts reporting. We have a close one between Oscar Garcia and David Keys. Oscar Garcia is the incumbent Fresno County Auditor Controller. And then we have Alan Cade at 7%. Tom, you start with this one.
Boy, this is an interesting one. I think Bill had said that he saw a lot of Keys signs out, or you saw a lot of Keys signs out. I've met Mr. Keys. He's a CPA. I think they're all CPAs. I think his theory was you don't want to have all the support of the Board of Supervisors because I guess you have to audit the supervisors. He didn't think it was fair to be appointed to this position because he thought maybe it was a conflict of interest. And so he has some support. And Mr. Cade, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, his dad worked for the Auditor's Controller's Office for a long time, so he's pretty qualified. And Oscar Garcia is the incumbent, but he was appointed to that position, and he worked in Tulare County. So I don't know if that has something to do with why there's people running and wanting to, because I think both Mr. Cade and Mr. Keys are Fresno County individuals. I'm sorry, Fresno City, Fresno County Auditor Controller's Office. So there might be some kind of thing going on there.
Bill?
So what's interesting about this race is that initially Paul Dictos, and so he's the recorder,
right?
Assessor recorder, and Paul Dictos has a fairly high profile. He was backing Oscar Garcia, and then when David Keys came into the race, Mr. Dictos switched his backing.
Interesting.
And he's heavily involved in the Keys campaign.
Wow.
And the reason that Dictos said he switched was that he didn't feel that Oscar would be independent. And he pointed to the things that Tom said, the fact that, he had the backing of basically the entire county.
Vicki Crow supports Mr. Keys, who is the incumbent. Well, she's not the incumbent, she's not.
Former.
Yeah, she's a former, yeah.
And Ms. Crow was the Auditor Controller before.
Yeah.
And what happened with her is she retired early, and so that's how Mr. Garcia got appointed to that position. Bill, is it still early for this one?
Well, it's 20% reporting, and it is, you know, they're counting the mail-in ballots, and sometimes the people that, as you know, vote on the day of the election vote a different way.
So if it stands that way, Bill, is that going to be a runoff between the two?
Yeah, it would be
48
between
and
the
44?
top two. To avoid a runoff, you have to have 50% plus one vote.
So let's move on to the judge. There was a couple of judges that retired, and the timing of their retirement caused seats to go to an election. And so this one is an interesting one. You've got Mr. Mangano, who's with the DA's office, against Mr. Woodward. So, Bill, start. 20% reporting, 71 to 29.
Well, obviously, Mangano's in charge of this one. And, you know, he promoted more conservative credentials and backing by law enforcement community. Mr. Woodward is with the county counsel's office. So
Mangano's got support of Dyer and Mims and the police association.
Right.
He's got, which is really interesting. We had a race, I think it was, what, 4 years ago, where all the judges supported one individual. 25 current and retired judges support Mr. Mangano. So that's pretty interesting. I think last time that happened, I think the person lost. I think, was it Hill? She had all that support. And Mr. Woodward, he's from a famous family, Woodward Park. That's his family. He doesn't have the financial money that Mr. Mangano has, who I think it's like 68,000 to 17,000. But you know, it wasn't a prosecutor. He's supported by retired Judge Akita and Steve McGarrion. So yeah, right now Mr. Mangano looks like he's in a very good position here.
And what's interesting is there's still 80% out there. So the night is young, but this one, if you're Mr. Mangano, you're feeling good right now?
well, yes, very good.
Well, you know, if at 29%,
That's
all
too
that
big
money.
a gap. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's not going to, the outcome's not going to change.
And we don't know where it's coming from too. We're not sure, you know, where the votes are at this point are. But that's a pretty good gap.
And numbers will be coming in all night, so we wish we could stay here all night and keep producing numbers. But tonight we're going to do the best we can with the time we're here to show you the latest numbers and talk about the various races. So judgeships, many people didn't realize that judgeships go to election like this, but they do. We have two races
Sure.
for judge.
Well,
in this.
normally the governor appoints. And
And then you just run as you're an incumbent, and usually people don't run against you.
yeah, once in a while, if a judge has been in a scandal or something, he may attract opposition.
He might get more votes sometimes.
But typically, yeah, once a judge is in, they run unopposed.
But there is an interesting race in the Bay Area where the judge had, remember that?
He faces recall.
He's facing a recall, yeah, which hardly ever happens, yeah.
So this is another judgeship here, Superior Court Judge number 4.
I'm surprised about
And
this.
this one, 20% reporting. William Terrence works at the DA's office. Roger Wilson, private practice, I believe. Both of you, Bill, start.
Yeah, but Roger Wilson does a lot of cases defending law enforcement, and I think he
has
got
the backing of the Fresno, Fresno Police Department.
FPOA, Fresno
Yeah.
Police Officers Association. Billy Terrence, William Terrence, of course, the son of Chris Terrence. A lot of people around Fresno know the name. Also a brother working in Fresno County Sheriff's Office. So the Terrence name is known, and Billy's a bright young guy, a hard charger, fairly charismatic.
And he's endorsed by, I think, everybody on the board at this point.
So I expected that race, however, to be a lot closer.
I do too. I would think that might
So
get
that
closer.
one might
come
tighten
in.
up, but this is a really good start for Billy Terrence.
Yeah, because Wilson has a lot of support from, the police, the Fresno Police Department.
And we don't know where these votes are coming, so just so our audience members know, votes come from different areas of the county for these races. So let's see. We'll keep an eye on it.
Terrence is interesting, though, because he's on the Planning Commission in
Of
Clovis, which is
City
interesting.
Clovis,
So a little civil law there and some criminal law, too.
So we're going to talk about the state senate race coming up next with one of our locals, Supervisor Andreas Borges, because those numbers I understand are in, and we're going to be talking about that shortly. But Tom, I want to ask you, how important is walking precincts?
Well, for a city council race, it's pretty important because people want to see you. If you're running for mayor, I think money is probably really important. You can only walk so many districts. I learned that when I ran for mayor. But walking, I don't know about a judge position because I think I don't know what the most important thing I think there in a lot of ways is endorsements. But I guess you could walk in some ways. But walking is important in some races and not in others.
So I know in the Terrence campaign, they did put an effort into walking.
So we're going to take a break in just about a few minutes here. Bill, final thoughts before we head into the break, and then we'll come back talking about the state Senate races.
So final thoughts? I mean,
final thoughts before the break.
Intermediate thoughts.
But we haven't even thought about the governor's race, and what's going to be interesting there is, and Tom talked about it earlier about the top two jungle primary in California. It seems like voters they're kind of unsure about it, and they're surprised at some of the tactics. But, the idea of it was that it would moderate behavior and force people to the middle. But we've seen that a lot of people think up tactics about not only do I have to promote myself, maybe knock down my opponent, but maybe I need to support someone else from the other party so they will steal away from my opponent.
But Bill, how about the other thing? That's important. But what about the fact that the Democrats saw a bunch of positions they wanted to take over, a bunch of congressional districts that they felt they had a real good shot of reversing. Too many run, yeah.
And there is
a number of
we
Democrats.
are going to talk about all this wonderful stuff coming up. You are watching the CMAC channels, Xfinity, Comcast Xfinity, and also AT&T Uverse. Stay tuned. We're going to break, but don't touch that dial.
CMAC empowers the members of the community to tell their story by offering them the opportunity to learn how to use video equipment, how to use the facilities we have to offer. CMAC is an organization that is devoted to allowing people to tell their stories. 99% of those organizations and individuals that have stories to tell have never been able to do it because they couldn't afford to. Now they can. CMAC empowers members of the community by offering them the opportunity to learn how to use all the wonderful equipment that we have available for them. And then once they've learned, using that equipment to create their own content.
The great thing about once someone has filmed and edited their video is that it is aired via Comcast and other channels, and this gives Arte Americas the opportunity to connect with outlying communities, people who may not have a chance to discover us any other way.
To see something that you've actually produced on a channel is fun for the first time, especially if you spent a lot of time with it. And it does take time to learn the programs.
Because you hear it all the time as a producer, we can help get you out there. But this is the real deal. There is no gimmicks, there are no type of games that they play. You produce the content, you follow the guidelines, it will air to the community and be an inspiration to the community.
CMAC is here to provide that venue. And it provides that venue to every aspect of the community, every part of the community. No one else does it that way. No one else offers that. The importance of CMAC's members cannot be overstated. CMAC is its members. We've trained hundreds of people, and we've already seen hundreds of stories, and the results of those stories are being felt in numerous ways.
I got involved with CMAC because a friend of mine already belonged, and we volunteered to film a fashion show. And because there were good classes for CMAC, they ran us all through all the instruments and equipment that we were going to be using. I felt good about the experience, and I felt really confident, and actually it was really a lot of fun too.
And the training is simple. You know, when I did it, I think I took 7 classes, and at the end of 7 classes I got a certificate and I started recording things. Anytime I've had questions, the staff here has been great, and they've given me the opportunity to try different things with whatever content I'm producing.
When I got around other members, seeing that they had different visions than I had, but that we could all partner together, it was just like a giant gumbo or a giant buffet of different ideas, different creators, but all with one purpose: to create quality content.
You can't do it all. You can't be the man in front and behind the camera for every production. CMAC needs volunteers because it's a community-based organization, and the more volunteers you have, the higher quality of production you can achieve in your program.
People can contribute to CMAC by just participating and coming up with your own clever ideas and coming to the functions, coming to the events.
I feel great about being able to send volunteers and people who are just connected with Arte Americas over to CMAC so they can develop their own art form. I think it'd be hard-pressed to find another organization providing this level of resources here to the Valley to anybody who is interested, motivated, and wants to sign up. It's incredible. We love having them across the street, and they really are adding to what the Central Valley is providing.
CMAC is an outlet for anyone who wants to get their message or their skills or their artwork or whatever it is out into the community. It's a professional atmosphere where you can get the help that you need to be able to produce your program, and as a result, Fresno gets so much more to see and find out about.
I mean, when I see the smiles when people come through on orientation, or when they're hanging out in class, or seeing their projects being on the big screen in the lobby or on TV, that's magic. I mean, it's one thing to hope to do something, but it's another thing to help people fulfill and be that servant in the community. And that's what CMAC is. CMAC serves to help fulfill people's dreams.
The Democrat.
Welcome back to the Community Media Access Collaborative Fresno and Clovis. We hope you're enjoying the live coverage of election night. What a beautiful time to be in Fresno County, to be in California, and to be in the United States. Again, our guests, experts for this evening's broadcast, GV Wire's Bill McEwen, who also spent a lot of time at the Fresno Bee. Bill, welcome.
Thank you.
And also Tom Boyajian, former city councilman, represented the Fresno High area, the Tower District area, and a little bit of West Fresno during your time.
That's right.
So let's jump into the state races. Here is one, 20% reporting. We have two people locally in this one, Supervisor Andreas Borges and Miss Paulina Miranda. Bill, talk about this one.
So really, this is a Republican-drawn district. A Republican's going to win. And a lot of votes, you know, it's got the foothill communities up towards Gold Country, a lot of votes in Fresno and Madera County, and, you know, the top two are going to go forward. Paulina Miranda's a Democrat and backed, I believe, by the Democratic Party. So she's probably going to go forward. Mark Belden's run before. He's running as no party preference, doesn't have a profile down here. And the real election here was the infighting locally among the Republicans about who was going to run. And Andreas Borges was able to clear out the field. Two other people looked at it, Steve Brandow from the City Council and Clint Olivier. And Borges flexed his fundraising and endorsement muscle, cleared the field. He'll end up replacing Tom Berryhill.
So 20% have voted so far, and we see Supervisor Borges ahead. This is a big district, so these numbers can change a little bit, correct?
It's a long district, like Bill said. It goes all the way to the Mother Lode Country. And if these voters are in Fresno, I mean, Andres Borges and Pauline Miranda are both Fresno people. But you know, if this is not in the foothill, this is not the foothill votes. You know, Mr. Pratt has the support of every Democratic club in that district. I don't know if it's going to help him because he comes from a little town called Murphy's, which is only 5,000 people up against 500,000 at Borges. But I think he might slip into number two.
Yeah, that's the question there.
Who's going to be the number two on this one? And you know, the next race has also gained a little bit of attention. It's also a state Senate race, and we have several people here that we've heard of before. Mr. Johnny Teixeira, Mr. Daniel Parra, Mr. Politres, and Caballero. Talk about this one.
So Ana Caballero's a longtime California lawmaker, you know, and she's over in the coastal area, Salinas area. This is the district that Anthony Cannella represented until he termed out. So she's going to be the Democrat in this race, much stronger candidate than Danny Parra, who comes from Fowler. And look at the race between Bob Poitras and Johnny Teixeira. And Poitras has really benefited from a lot of radio advertising that's been on the air, and it's come from an independent expenditure group.
And of course, Mr. Teixeira faced Congressman Jim Costa a couple of times, came close once. It's Poitras. Sorry, I want to apologize.
Poitras.
I mispronounced that. Tom, what are your thoughts about that race?
I think it's amazing what Johnny Teixeira is doing. I mean, he's not raised a lot of money. He's raised about $35,000, $40,000. Mr. Poitras has raised over $250,000. And for him to be neck and neck is amazing to me. I mean, but he has recognition. He's run against Costa. He's done very well against Costa. So there's some recognition there. But to be that close, and Ana Cabello is, you know, she has a lot of money. She has over $400,000 in her.
So 11% of reporting in this one. Bill, Teixeira's run before. That's helped him here. It sounds like.
Well, you said he ran well against Costa. I mean, one time he ran so well he actually went to freshman orientation in Washington, D.C., and only as the votes trickled in did it swing when the late city of Fresno votes were counted that pushed Costa over the top. So, you know, I think you can safely say, even though it's only 11%, that Ana Caballero will be the Democrat in the race. This is top two. The top two finishers go to the November 6th election, and the battle is between Poitras and Johnny Teixeira. And it looks very close.
Is this a Republican stronghold, or could this be one of those districts that can go back and forth?
You nailed it on the head there.
Could go back and forth?
Well, you think of Anthony Cannella. He would be called, you know, a liberal Republican if there is such a thing, or a guy in the middle. And Anthony Cannella proved to be swing votes on some big issues in state Senate.
So let's move on to another state Senate race. District 14 is this race, and Andy Vidak is the incumbent in this one, 41%. But the others are close, especially Miss Jurado. Tom.
She's done very well. She's a city councilman from Sanger, and to get that kind of support is really well. She's an advocate for health care, and to get 31% at this point, I guess she's going against, I mean, Mr. Vidak, it looks like he's going to get the Republican vote, and Ms. Solis, I think, is also a Democrat, and I think Mr. McCarno he's run before. I think he's run in a couple campaigns before.
Yeah, from Visalia.
From Visalia, yeah. But this is a race where people who are interested who are advocates have taken the time to run because they believe it. Because Mr. Vidak is, he's won these races and he's won, strongly. He's done very well.
So at what point, my question is to either of you, at one point does one of the other candidates kind of get upset and say, I shouldn't have this much competition. They should have cleared the field for me so that I could have possibly...
Well, you don't have any control over that, and that's why at this level, the state party endorsements are important, because you go to the convention. If you can get the convention to give you the endorsement, that's a loud message to voters in the party. This is the person we're going to back. So that means you're going to get financial backing, but you're also going to get that message to your party voters. Don't waste your time with this other person.
But Bill, are you surprised that the Democrats have that kind of support?
Well, it's 8% too. I just want to remind our audience.
But that's 40.
I am 59%. Surprised, but the question when you're Andy Vidak is, you've won several races, but you know what the registration of your district is, and this is you know, a district that's really drawn up to be represented by a Democrat.
Interesting.
And so if there is a blue wave in November, I mean, then Mr. Vidak's going to have to really hustle. And the other thing to remember is with this top two system, Andy Vidak is not really, he hasn't been on the campaign trail. He hasn't been hitting it hard. He knows he's going to go to November.
So let's move on to the California State Assembly seat. Mr. Patterson, Jim Patterson, is the incumbent, and he's facing Eileen Rizzo. Any surprises here on this one so far, Bill, with 14% reporting?
No, not a surprise at all. I mean, this is one of the safest Republican districts in the state of California. And Jim's drawn a credible, strong candidate, and you know, they'll duke it out again in November.
So it's not over here. So let's say Mr. Patterson gets 70% of the vote.
No, both candidates are going to be on the November 6th ballot.
So this is kind of like a first step, or kind of like the practice run.
This will be not even the practice run. This is, yeah, I guess it's an exhibition game.
I think she's done pretty. I mean, 34%. That's not bad. For, this is a person that's never run for political office before, and she's famous for suing, you know, the county board, board
of education.
Yeah, for not getting equal pay. So I mean, she's done pretty well.
So does a lawsuit like that, Bill, will that help in this case, or will it turn voters off? I don't mean to put you in the spot on that.
Well, in that district, I don't necessarily see that as a plus.
I don't think so either. No, I mean, I don't think so either.
So 66 to 34, 14% reporting. And Patterson was the mayor of Fresno, correct?
Oh, yes. He was the mayor of Fresno, 2 terms.
Was that your time, Tom, when you were?
Yeah. I was on the council 2 years. I actually liked Mr. Patterson. In fact, the Fresno Bee said he was my mentor, which was wrong, of course. A liberal Democrat, but that's whatever. So he was, I liked him. He always supported my budget things that I wanted because I wouldn't sign the budget unless there was some support. But he's found a niche. Like Bill has said, sometimes you can run for a political office many times and lose, but you come back and you prevail.
Well, you think about Jim Patterson. He gave Devin Nunes his toughest test in the congressional battle. So
let's move on to the next race here. California State Assembly District 31. Joaquin Arambla is the sitting incumbent. Lupe Espinosa is challenging him, 27% reporting, 60 to 39.
And she's the Republican, so they're going to. She's the Republican, so it looks like she's doing pretty good.
In this seat, do you, Bill, foresee that a Republican can win?
Well, you never say never, but the odds are highly stacked against it.
Tom, any thoughts on this race?
Well, you know, I mean, here's a lady that, again, doesn't have any experience running, and she's running against an incumbent. And, I mean, she wants to lower taxes, which everybody wants to lower taxes. She's conservative. She's got a master's degree. She's a school counselor. I mean, she's, you know, she has a great background, and she's doing pretty decent. I mean, this is a race that Arambla did really well in last time he won. And it's a Democratic race. His father, wasn't this his father's seat? Yeah. I mean, he's got a real name recognition. She's not doing badly. She's doing okay.
27% reporting. We'll watch this to see. But again, this is one of those, Bill, that this is the first dance, correct?
That's right. Both will go to the ballot in November.
Tom, let's go to you a little bit. And during election night, when you're running for office and it's election night, what advice would you give some of our candidates?
Oh boy. Well, election night is good because you're surrounded by friends. So, you know, and it's nice, and you don't look at all the things that you didn't do, that you think you didn't do well for, and just be thankful that you have people surrounding you, and be thankful that you're doing it. I mean, I think, what's the percentage of people that are in elective office? It's a very small percentage, and at least do it. I mean, you know.
So especially in California, when you consider how big our state is, 40 million people, and you have 80 people in the assembly and 40 in
And the thing is, too, you know, win or lose, you meet a lot of people.
Along
and
the way,
a lot of
yeah.
good people that you meet, and a lot of people, and you learn a lot of things about what you didn't know. I mean, you know, I lived in the district. I didn't know a lot of things that I learned, and you meet a lot of people that are cool. I think Bill did an article one time on me, just in a neighborhood that we went into, and talked to some people as to some things that we did in the neighborhood, and you meet some really interesting people.
So I don't mean to cut you off, Tom, but this one has been a hot race, and so 10% of the numbers are reporting. We're only showing the two. There's others in this race, so these numbers are not going to add up to 100, but Devin Nunes, 56%, Andrew Jans, 34%, Bill. GV Wire, you interviewed one of these candidates, correct?
Well, we did in-depth with Andrew Jans. Devin Nunes' office doesn't really communicate with us, so it's very hard to do. But we try to report these stories fairly, and you know, we have to get information about Devin Nunes from other sources. We work hard to do it so our stories are balanced. What I see in this is 56 to 34. You add that up, that's 90%.
So these two have
you
the
have
most.
4 other candidates in the race. They're not a factor at all. These are the 2 that are going to go to November. And the eyes of the nation are going to be on this race. The eyes of the nation already are on this race.
This is a big race.
So let me ask you then, it doesn't matter on this one if Congressman Nunes gets over 50%. This is one of those where
Sure.
No, it's another top 2 race.
This race actually, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but this race is, the way I look at this race, it's Audra McDonald, who is a famous Fresno actor, against Ivana Trump, because both of them supported the other. Audra McDonald supports Andrew Jansen, and Ivana Trump has supported Devin Nunes. So it comes down
Trump
to
tweeted something. President Trump tweeted something about
today.
this, right, Bill?
Said get out there and vote for Devin Nunes. So you think about the registration in the district. Republicans own a 10-point registration edge. It's a safe Republican district, and so far Devin Nunes is actually beating the edge. He's ahead by 18%.
But if this goes on, which sounds like it will, to November, then it's going to be a lot more interesting because the other candidates are kind of going to disappear, and it's going to be a head-on match. Do you foresee that
but these 2 candidates are taking up all the vote. Look at that, 90% of the vote.
Good observation.
So what is Jans? I mean, if he picks up Rico Franco's vote and Bobby Bleout's vote, I mean, you know, that's 8%. That doesn't get you there.
And Bobby Bleout had a pretty good resume. I mean, I was surprised that he didn't get more votes. I mean, gosh.
What's interesting about this is that Bobby, in a normal year, he would have, you know, the Democrats would have been proud to have him as the standard bearer because Devin Nunes has been so strong. He's only faced token opposition from the Democrats.
Well, I hope he does run again. I mean, because he has a great resume.
So now let's move on to the other congressional race. This one hasn't got that much attention, but this one is interesting because, Tom, you actually know Mr. Cox. TJ Cox is running against
Well, he just got in the race. I mean, he only got in this race a few weeks ago. I think Dolores Huerta's son was in this race.
Amelia Huerta, who lost last time around.
Yeah, so TJ's only been in the race before. TJ is known for the fact that he ran against Radonovich, which is that a Republican district, Bill?
Yeah, yes, that was a Republican district. So, and a lot different geography. So this district is, again, Democrats have a big
17%
voter registration edge. It hasn't mattered to David Valadao. He's turned back Democrats time and again. Of course, he's very closely linked with Devin Nunes. And, you know, Democrats, they always feel like we need to win this. And you think about when Amanda Renteria went against David Valadao and he just wiped her out.
Yeah, TJ has a lot of support, but he has a lot of money. He's an entrepreneur. He doesn't live in the district, which is interesting. You don't have to live in the congressional district. He hasn't really put much time into this. He should make it an interesting campaign, but I think like Bill says, Valadao is pretty popular in this district.
So, and a lot of people don't understand how Valadeo keeps winning, Congressman Valadeo, because isn't that a Democrat district and he's a Republican?
So you have a lot of people that register as Republican, but they're, you know, really what used to be called Reagan Democrats. They're very conservative, and
he's a farmer.
He's a dairyman, and you're talking Tulare, Tulare and Kings County. You're talking about very conservative voters.
So this one, this one again will go off till November. So this, again, is part one, basically, of a two-part series.
Well, there's a lot of money here. There's a lot of money. Both these candidates have raised over $1 million. Valadeo, almost $2 million.
So T.J. Cox, his challenge will be to energize voters.
And get them to the polls.
Sure.
Yes, and so you think, you know, when people predict a blue wave, that's going to be a test of the blue wave in that district.
So let's talk about another race that gained steam, and people were talking about this one.
This is a really interesting
Jim
race.
Costa, who's Congressman Costa, against Elizabeth Henge. And so people are labeling Miss Henge as this up-and-coming, strong candidate for these kind of races with 6% reporting. These are the numbers. Bill, any surprises here?
No, I'm not surprised. And to me, this race tonight doesn't really mean a lot. Same two candidates will square off in November, and Elizabeth's going to have to raise a lot more money for her to really have a chance. She's going to have to increase her profile. I saw her campaign ad that she's running on the air now, and to me it didn't really appeal. I know she thinks she's got to win over Democrats, but just didn't have a strong conservative message. In fact, a lot of her statements, when she talks, she sounds a lot like Jim Costa. So what she really does, and so what she's basically saying is it's time for a fresh face.
Well, Jim Costa is not a liberal Democrat. He's sort of a centralist, and
I would call her a liberal Republican.
Maybe.
So I mean, they're kind of close together.
But I'm really impressed by her. I really am. I read her bio. You know, student body president at Stanford. You know, valedictorian at Sunnyside High School. She's done really well. She worked on Trump's inauguration. I mean, this woman has a good opportunity to do some good things.
And I expect, you know, this shows 64-36 now with 6% reporting. When it comes to November, I don't see Jim Costa winning by that margin. And I say that because Elizabeth got into the race late. And so that's a little bit of a factor in this one. But
and what Bill says,
by the time you get to November, she's going to be well known. I think she's going to have to pay more attention to the northern part of the district. So far, she's focused on Fresno.
And what Bill said is the gap in how much money these people have. Costa's got $1 million. She's only raised about $120,000, and look what she's done.
So how does she raise more money against an incumbent like Jim Costa? He's been around for a very long time, has built a lot of bridges with people in the community. He's been in elected office previously. How does she raise money in this kind of race?
So she has to prove herself enough that she gets the national party interested.
But I think if you're a Republican and you see somebody like that running, young, tremendous bio, who has some really good ideas, who work for Trump, I mean, I would think that they would push some money into this campaign because, I mean, she's a keeper. I know she's like 35 years old. She's really young.
So
I mean,
she has a future, you're saying?
I think. Well, I mean, if she wants a future, I mean, I think it's pretty impressive myself, and I'm a liberal Democrat. I mean, so I mean, I hope that she feels that she has a career in politics. She can do some good things. And like Bill said, she's probably a liberal Republican, somewhat.
We're also covering several of the bond measures on the ballot. So this one, 54% to 46%. Proposition 68, approved bonds for state parks and water supply. Any of you have any ideas on this?
There's something going on in Fresno County where they want to do something to where they're going to improve. It's going to be a lot like the zoo tax, where they want to put a tax on sales tax, and the money would go towards parks. And I would think if they could prove that, if that's approved, that might be a really good thing for Fresno. I don't know. I don't know if you have to look at how much money there is in the pot in Fresno to get money for this from this one. But maybe these two would really help Fresno if this passed.
So these types of propositions typically have matching fund requirements because they just don't want to dole out money to communities that won't invest
so Fresno,
themselves.
Yeah.
But it's interesting about this early on, this was sold as a water bond, and it clearly is not just a water bond. And I think it has a problem too, at least among Valley voters, because of what happened with Temperance Flat. People say, I voted for a water bond, and now we're not going to get Temperance Flat. Why? I'm never voting for another water bond again. I hear voters say that the last few weeks.
So moving on, Proposition 69, require new gas tax revenue to be spent on transportation. 7% reporting, but this is a big gap on this one. Yes to 18%.
Well, this is what a lot of people are going to leave California because the gas taxes are so high.
And so this is a reaction to when the gas tax hike went in, and it's advertised as this is going to go to rebuild roads and this kind of thing, but it also goes to a lot of other things.
It doesn't go to the bullet train, though. It doesn't go to the bullet train, though.
But bike lanes and all kinds of things that aren't specifically roads.
So a lot of people just vote no.
Californians love their cars.
That's true, especially in Los Angeles, man. I think it's almost like a social event. You leave work and you spend 3 hours in your car. And if you've got a really nice car, you could probably pick up some women. If you're a man, if you drive those, and if you drive to San Diego, you see this all the time, and people just, they're gridlocked, and it's almost like they just love their cars.
That's why we love Fresno, is because the commute is easy. When you ask about voting no, so my advice has always been, unless you're totally for a bond, vote no, because the status quo is probably better than some great unknown.
So no keeps the status quo.
Bill,
basically.
on this one here, though,
let me introduce this one,
okay,
Tom.
sure.
For our audience members that are just tuning in, we have Proposition 70. It requires a supermajority to pass the cap and trade spending plan. 7% reporting. We don't know where this 7% is from, but 40% yes, 60% no.
I thought with this cap and trade spending plan, they'd have more. They would be able to get more funding for the bullet train if they didn't have to go supermajority. Is that close to being accurate or not?
So the debate in the legislature, and it's coming from Republicans, because the whole thing, you can pass a budget now, without a supermajority. The Democrats were able to get that through. And so this is about having a bigger say in cap and trade spending.
Interesting.
And
Very
cap and
interesting.
trade spending a lot of that goes to the bullet train because of the economics and because of the environmental issues.
And it's a huge fund, the cap and trade. It's a huge fund, and so people are saying, we need to get two-thirds to agree on this before you pass it.
And is it true that this area, Fresno County, is typically a no for bonds type of area? I've heard that before, and I don't know how true that is.
Sevag, the Central Valley is interesting in that people are always talking about jobs. The biggest job maker that we've ever seen in the valley is happening right now, called the bullet train. There are so many jobs, high-speed rail. There's right now 2,000 jobs right now, and 1,000 of those jobs are from Fresno County residents. And these are not $10 an hour jobs, $10 an hour. These are jobs that are going to hopefully help people get closer to Silicon Valley from here, who maybe want to live in Fresno and work there. And it's really great. Maybe help our environment, which we have some of the worst air pollution in the country. So people in the valley sometimes vote against things, cause all kinds of grief. Like the UC campus, which should have been in Fresno County or Madera County, that's now in Merced County. So yes, there are some really...
but I see, we have this reputation as the no county, but at the same time, we pass these sales tax measures.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Like for the zoo.
The zoo is
and we were one of the first counties in the state to help with the financing of our own roads.
You're right.
We're called a self-help county.
Measure C. I mean, Measure C.
And Measure C was renewed.
So great conversation, gentlemen, by the way, but let's move on briefly. Proposition 71, ballot measures take effect after results are certified. 78% yes, 22% no.
So 5 days afterwards, offices change.
Right away, immediately.
Right away. So there's no hanging around and, waiting and that kind of thing. I agree with this. I voted yes.
That happened to me when Mike Burgess was elected in the assembly. I got to take his office right like that. So it really helped me because I got a whole extra month. I actually was on council 8 years and 1 month. And that really helped me because it got me, into some of the issues and stuff. So I think it's a good one too.
So let's briefly talking about the propositions locally that have helped, like Measure Z with the zoo. Is there a time that stops, or do you think that will continue and continue and continue?
Sevag, I can only tell you that, and I'm not going to tell my political, I'm not going to get into politics, but we should be getting the revenue in other places. But if we're not going to do that, then it's a good way to go. Other people should be paying for it, not the middle class. But yeah, if I was on the council when we approved the zoo bond, we got a beautiful zoo. It's comparable to some of the best zoos in the state of California. It heightens the profile of Fresno. If this parks one goes in, like Bill said, it's not just parks, it's trails. I mean, Fresno, you have to navigate it with a car. It'd be nice to be able to navigate it with a bicycle or something of that nature.
So let's move on, and we're going to take a break shortly after this. But Proposition 72, exclude new rain capture systems from property tax assessments. Again, this one, 9%, 85% say yes, 15% no.
What does that mean, Bill?
Well, this is super wonkish, and what it says is if you build a rain capture system to help with the drought, obviously, that rain capture system is not going to count towards the value of your property. It's excluded from the property tax assessment. So here's a classic. 85% say yes. How many people are actually going to build a rain capture system in California? Very
That's
few.
a great point.
But this gives people an opportunity to say, I'm helping lower taxes.
I didn't understand this one at all, so I'm really glad that you explained it. I'm not sure what I voted on it, but I didn't understand it. And I've got a law degree, so I wouldn't know what the heck.
So, gentlemen, we're going to take a short break. And Tom, we're actually going to try to get one of our old colleagues that has done this show before a couple of times, Chris Matisse. We're going to try to get him on the phone and see how he's doing. You are watching the Community Media Access Collaborative, Fresno Clovis, for our live election night coverage. Thank you so much for being here. Don't touch that dial. We have our experts, former City Council member Tom Boyajian, and someone who's been in journalism for a very, very long time, Fresno Bee, and currently with GV Wire, Bill McEwen. Let's go to break. Don't touch that dial, because we're going to be back for some more interesting stuff. Election night.
Well, that's...
Live production is different because you don't have that leniency of saying, oh, we'll just go back and edit it. What you see is what the audience is going to see.
It's hard at first because you don't really know what to do, but it's definitely easy to catch on. I mean, you learn pretty quickly. I mean, the people around here are very helpful. It's a team effort, so everyone kind of learns a little bit of everything just from watching and doing.
When I show up to a live CMAC production, I know for a fact that I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to learn new skills. I'm going to get better at the skills that I already know. Overall, I'm just going to come out of it better than I was before.
On this type of production, team means not only like having a leader there, but also having friends, like multiple friends. Everybody's willing to help you out and listen. The staff at CMAC is really supportive and helpful, and they're also just really friendly in general and really welcoming.
Live production is unique because you really only get one shot. You don't get a do-over like in normal stuff with like sets and all that kind of stuff. It's really just like go, go, go.
The Fresno Fuego first place in the Southwestern Division, and they were coming off a road trip that went about as perfect as you could get.
I love video production because of all of the hard work and like determination that it takes, because a lot of people, they're like, oh, I want to go into video production, but they don't really understand that it's actually more work than setting up a camera and pressing record.
I like working under pressure because it really motivates me to get things done. My job as a technical director is to push buttons when the director tells me to, and that will bring things onto the screen like bugs or different camera cuts.
I get a lot of the celebrations of the players when they finally make that goal. I get a lot of the corner kicks. I get a lot of like just the on-the-field action that kind of allows the viewer to actually be inside the actual game itself. I love video production because to me it seems like it's one giant puzzle that just needs to be solved.
The first time that I saw my replays on air, I felt sort of a sense of accomplishment because I knew that that was me.
Can't get it, left foot from Blanco, but it's finally in! The attack continues!
And just knowing that I was able to do that and have it look good, it just makes me feel really good.
Before I came into live production, I had never done anything that was a live shoot at all. You know, now I'm able to pull cables and run cameras and set up all these other different things. The entire thing is a learning experience. So if you have no experience to begin with, you're gonna come out learning something new, and you're gonna enjoy doing it.
To me, CMAC is really a community. I've met a lot of people, like a lot of great people that I think I will still be in contact with after this. Like, if I need to work on something, you still know someone that is interested in the same thing as you are. I will never forget this experience.
We all love the same thing, which is just creating media in general. Overall, it's just a very interesting experience, and it's awesome.
Give it a shot because you might end up belonging there more than you think you do.
Welcome back. We're recording live out of the Community Media Access Collaborative, Fresno and Clovis, here in the beautiful downtown Fresno studios. We have our experts with us talking about election results and more. Tom Boyajian, former city council member, Bill McEwen, news director at GV Wire, formerly with the Fresno Bee. Also, behind the cameras and in the studio, we have a group of volunteers making this production what it is. So we were talking about Proposition 72, exclude new rain capture systems from property tax assessments. Tom is laughing because, you know, this one was a tough one to understand, but Bill, you did a great job explaining it.
I think he's in the business probably. Are you in the rain capture business?
We spent way too much time on this one.
Are you in the business? I mean, do you have a rain capture system?
So we are now going to go to the phone lines. Tom, we've done this broadcast live several times, and in the past we've had former city council member Chris Matisse. Chris, are you there?
Typical Chris Matisse, right? When you want him.
We're gonna get it. We're gonna try to get him. Yeah, the phone cut out, but we're gonna try to get him back and see how he's doing on this election night. But you know, before we do that, let's go to the California governor race. This one has been very interesting. Bill, you were saying something in this one when we were on break about this race.
So you think about Gavin Newsom and Antonio Villaraigosa. Between the two of them, raised and spent about $70 million. John Cox is in second place at 28%. This is in a state where Republican registration is 21.5%. So he is winning a so-called independents. I bet he's winning quite a few Democrats as well. John Cox has spent, I think, $6.5 million, and $5 million came out of his own pocket. So he's got the most bang for the buck in this primary election. And Antonio Villaraigosa had this game plan. He's going to be the conservative Democrat. He's going to dominate the Central Valley. He's going to get his former constituents. He's the former mayor of LA. They're going to come out and support him. And, you know, he was going to get into the runoff by attracting a lot of Republicans. That was the theory. Well, look how it's working.
Bill, he received all that money from charter schools. I mean, he got $7 million.
Billionaires contributing all the slate push, and he is barely holding off Travis Allen.
I don't even know. It's surprising. I don't know where this is coming from.
Right, and
this is shocking, really.
I wanted to jump in here and say that this is 13% of the votes. This could be coming from north. California is a big state, north or south or the middle.
This is not going to change much.
You don't think? You think the Newsom's going to be in by 3%?
No, I don't think it's going to change a lot.
Wow, if that, I mean, that's amazing. What
so
Cox
top
is
two
doing.
here. Go on.
Yeah, this is the top two race, and you know, 6-7 months ago, everyone was saying it's going to be Democrat versus Democrat. It's going to be Gavin Newsom versus Antonio Villaraigosa. No one had heard of John Cox, and he's self-funded, and I think he was able to get away from Travis Allen. Travis Allen ran as, I'm the Trump guy in California. You think that would be popular? He never got any real fundraising behind him. And then when President Trump came out a couple weeks ago and endorsed John Cox, his numbers have climbed.
Speaking of endorsements, Fresno Police Chief, he jumped into this one, didn't he? Tell us, Bill.
Yeah, he did. So Jerry Dyer backed Antonio Villaraigosa, somewhat of a surprise. Dyer's known as a conservative. Typically, if he's going to endorse, it's going to be a Republican. This time he endorsed a Democrat. That followed after Alan Autry, the former mayor of Fresno, a Republican when he was mayor. Now he's a no-party preference guy. He also backed Villaraigosa. But in a state as big as California, you know, that endorsement is meaningful locally, but it's just not going to push statewide.
So could a Republican, Tom or Bill, either of you, could a Republican win California?
I don't think so. But surprisingly, though, I mean, Gavin Newsom supported John Cox, believe it or not. I mean, he supported him because he went up against his Democratic rivals, and he wanted to run against John Cox, I think.
There's no I think.
Yeah. Sorry.
He absolutely wants to run against John Cox.
But I'm shocked at John, at Mr. Chang. I mean, he's a state office holder, and he only got 9%. And he really toured the state. I mean, he went to every city, and he just didn't have any traction at all. It's amazing.
So I want to ask about the fact. Go ahead.
I would add up, though. So, Newsom 31 is a D. Villaraigosa 12. That gets you to 43. John Chung 9. That gets you to 52. And you have Delane Easton, Amanda Renteria down the line. I don't see that. John Cox can win.
But don't you think that's a win for John Cox? I mean, can you in California, the liberal state, and not the most liberal state, but one of the liberal states, that he's going to be able to get 45% of the vote? And
but will it hurt Gavin Newsom for him to support Cox now and then face him later on? One of the questions I would ask is,
but he didn't overtly support him.
No.
What he did is he said, look at John Cox. He's against gun control. He's backed by the NRA. He's makes all these comments about sanctuary state. So Gavin is knocking him, but at the same time, for the benefit of Republican voters, he's calling attention to the values that Republicans embrace.
Very, very tactical.
Yes, very tactical, yes.
So let's go on to the next race, which we have numbers for. It's this race, 14% reporting, Dianne Feinstein and Kevin De Leon. And De Leon was seen to be coming up pretty fast in this one. We don't know where these votes are from. Obviously, one's from Southern California, the other one's from the north. But is this a surprise, Bill? Will we see any changes here?
It's hard to say. This is 14%, and we don't know how close someone like Stephen Bradley is, a Republican candidate. De Leon, his campaign has just not caught fire. And his goal is make it into the runoff. Then it's going to be Democrat against Democrat. And he clearly is, the favorite of the liberal wing of the Democratic Party.
I think Bill's right in some ways. I think you've got some people that could really trend high here. You know, Bradley could trend. You've got a guy named Pat Harris, who's a Democrat, and you've got a woman named Allison Hartson. These people are activists, and they put on a camp. They don't have a lot of money, but they might be able to pass De Leon. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. De Leon is sort of, that's not surprising. He's doing pretty poorly. I mean, this guy was the head of the state senate. He's only getting 10% of the vote.
Some people made the comment that he's running to bring name ID for him, so that in the future he can do something. Any truth to something like that?
Well, he may be doing that, but I think he made a mistake.
He's not doing well.
I think he really overestimated his name ID around the state. And, you know, you get in Sacramento, you get in a bubble. He ran the Senate, very powerful person, but let's be honest, how many people actually pay attention to what's going on in Sacramento?
And
so, to me, this was premature, but at the same time, he didn't really have an office to jump to. So he decided, you know, Dianne Feinstein is going to be, I believe, 85 in June. Yeah. And, 6 years. She serves out her term. She's going to be 90. I'm the young guy, and it seems like Democrats are going more liberal now. You know, I got a chance in this.
And this race really shows it, Bill, because the people I was telling you who were trending, these Democrats in LA, they're Bernie Sanders type Democrats. This De Leon is not a Bernie Sanders type, and Feinstein is more, I think she's more Republican in a lot of ways. And I mean, this single payor and the things that are really, the hallmark of a liberal Democrat. And it'll be surprising if De Leon gets beat by these trending Democrats. It's going to be interesting to see, because you're going to have a Bernie Sanders type Democrat go against Feinstein. De Leon is not a Bernie Sanders type Democrat, so it'll be interesting. But I wouldn't be that happy to have 10% at this point, because he had, like Bill said, he had a lot of, his bio is pretty good.
And again, I want to just let our audience members know this is 14%. We don't know what part of the state. Obviously, Feinstein stronger in the north, but you know what? It could be that she's strong in the south part of the state as well, showing these numbers right now. Bill, this is a tough question I'm going to ask you, but do you foresee Feinstein retiring in the next couple of election cycles? Because some people
couple election cycles.
She'll be 109.
No, I expect her to serve 2 years or so and retire, and then it'll be up to the governor to appoint.
The reason I asked the question is because some people said, well, why didn't De Leon just wait for Senator Feinstein to retire?
But he has to get the nomination of the party. I mean, I don't know that he would be able to get that. That's difficult. He's not from San Francisco. And San Francisco seems like it's sort of the area now that, Feinstein's
dominating state politics.
Yeah, I mean, Feinstein was a mayor. Boxer was a senator. Harris was a DA. They're all from San Francisco.
So the numbers that we've
had... You left out Gavin Newsom.
Yes. I thought he was, he's Republican. I thought he's Democrat. It's okay.
So gentlemen, I'm being told that the numbers haven't been updated yet. So we've shown the latest numbers that we have so far. So let's go into some final thoughts. Can you believe it? We're almost out of time here.
We go awful fast.
Live election night coverage at CMAC.
I have a race that's interesting, is the Attorney General race. What do you think about that, Bill? You've got Dave Jones, who is insurance commissioner, who did a lot of the things that an Attorney General does, sort of. He prosecutes people, you know, against Xavier Becerra. What do you think about that? That might be a surprise. I mean, they're going to be the two top vote getters, but it's going to be interesting.
So I looked at Capital Weekly. They sampled 11,000 early returns, exit polls, and showed Dave Jones not doing anything in that race.
Really?
And, then you have the retired judge from El Dorado County, Stephen Bailey, and in the polls, he's a Republican. He's been running solidly in second.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, final thoughts. Tom, we've had a great time here this evening so far. It's been early. We've seen some numbers, some interesting things. What are your final thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are positive. I think we've got a lot of individuals who are running in our local arena, and a lot of them are qualified, and I think that's good for the city of Fresno. I think it was supposed to be a situation where a lot of times when you have a city council race, you don't always have people that are qualified. These people are qualified. I think they care, and some of the races for assembly and for Congress, you got some really good campaigners, and some of the Republicans like Hinge. I mean, I was really surprised by her credentials, and you're seeing a lot of people who are coming out and going for it, and I think that's really good for the area.
This has been
Bill, final thoughts.
District 7, that's a big race as far as the city of Fresno goes.
Very big.
Be very interesting there, because if the more liberal candidate wins in November, and I expect Brian Whelan to make the runoff if he doesn't win outright tonight, that could really change the dynamic of the city council.
Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing your expertise this evening on CMAC's live election night coverage. Tom Boyajian, former city councilman, local attorney in town. Bill McEwen, former journalist with the Fresno Bee, currently with GV Wire as the news director. Thank you so much, you two, for making time to be here. I understand, Bill, you're going to get back to work here after this.
Yep, so we'll be updating all the election results on GV Wire. We have our reporter David Taub. He's out at all the election parties. We'll be doing Facebook Live. So
that's great.
Continuing coverage throughout the night.
Thank you very much to our experts. Thank you to you at home watching this broadcast on the Comcast Xfinity channels, AT&T UVerse channels, online, via the website, via Facebook. We hope you enjoyed the program, but thank you to the crew that make this kind of production happen. For those of you who are at home, it takes a small army to make this happen, and tonight they did a wonderful job as always. Please stay tuned to all the exciting stuff happening at CMAC. The website is cmac.tv. We have a lot of exciting stuff happening here in the beautiful downtown Fresno studios of this wonderful organization. Tune in next time. We'll be back in November for general election coverage. We hope that you make CMAC the home of your in-between, we call it, news broadcasts for election night. Thank you and have a marvelous night. Good luck to all the candidates.
This has been a special live presentation of Election Night 2018, brought to you by the staff and volunteers of the Community Media Access Collaborative in downtown Fresno.